Hello, everyone, and welcome to this short webinar on why it's easy to use carbon neutral direct mail. My name is Steve Falk. I'm joined here by the moderator, Beth Burke. And thank you very much, Beth, for joining us and helping setting up this webinar. We've got some great participation today, and everybody will be getting a copy of this as a recording. If you are watching this now later, you know it is a recording, and for those who have to leave early or want to pass it on to colleagues, etc., you'll get a copy of this in an email in a few days. Thank you very much for coming by and joining us today. Make sure that I can launch this properly for people. In April of this year, we launched the planet's first carbon neutral direct mail. What this means is that we did some research into the greenhouse gas emissions all the way from the tree to the paper factory, from the paper factory to our place, the production in our facility, and then downstream we studied Canada Post's emissions from their annual report, and they told us a little bit about how they're doing it, and we took the extra step of giving a per mail piece carbon emissions designation that we could then claim and put into our calculation and say that we now are doing carbon neutral direct mail through offsetting programs and other reduction programs. So this short 20-minute video, you're going to understand by the end of it why it's easy, why really you do nothing different if you want, and you'll have carbon neutral direct mail from our facility. I'll also spend a couple of seconds, it'll really be about 5 minutes, on greenhouse gas emissions 101. I think a lot of people have some misunderstandings or maybe no comprehension at all about how greenhouse gases are emitted and why they would be emitted during a direct mail process. But we took some inventory of them, and we have a good sense of what that is. We also published that publicly, so you can go back and refer to it, share it with colleagues, etc., critique and otherwise use our information. If you're somebody who is trying to do sustainable direct mail at your own mail production facility, and I can tell from some of the people who've joined the webinar today that these are people who are in the industry, we welcome that and encourage it, and that's why we made our intellectual property, the research that we did on this subject, public, so that people can pick it up, comment on it, and maybe take their own action. You can also make a difference by making a few tweaks to your direct mail, and we'll be talking about that. The goal being easy here, and then a chance to ask a few questions, all of that in 20 minutes. If you haven't seen my 20 or 30 YouTube videos, they often start something like this, me holding up a card and talking about a subject. There's one on zero carbon direct mail. We decided to get into zero carbon direct mail partly because we recognize the carbon in the atmosphere problem. The greenhouse gas emissions were definitely causing a problem, and the United Nations says there were a bunch of activities that you could take to try and take some action. And even as a small company, we felt compelled to do so. So the first step we took was to do some research. And we really felt that our clients, many of whom are in the nonprofit sector and financial services, etc., they have ESG commitments, they have some objectives by their boards and their stakeholders to try and improve the environmental impact of their organization and the things they do. So we thought, hey, you know what, since we're involved with these organizations, as a vendor, we better start by learning what role we play, and then see if we can take some action on it. Just quickly, we're a techie kind of company that produces direct mail. We're fast growing. We've 10 times growth in the last 10 years. We win awards for doing cool work and for being a great place to work. And we also got an honorable mention a few months ago at Canada Post during their Canada Post Environmental Awards. And we try to involve ourselves in the direct mail community in Canada by becoming members of organizations like the Canada Post Expert Partner Program, NAMU, the National Association of Major Mailers, and also the recently formed Sustainable Mail Group. And we're very grateful for the contributions and inspiration that the Sustainable Mail Group gives to us as members. And as a member of the Communications Committee, I get to meet a lot of people in Canada who are in the printing and mailing and paper business, the post office, who are all interested in finding ways to reduce. And I encourage people who are watching here to join the Sustainable Mail Group. You can find it by going to the Sustainable Mail Group website, or go and join with no obligation, of course, at their LinkedIn group as well, and you'll get updates on things. So why is a sustainable mail so important? You know, what happened is we did this research study. In a moment, I'm going to introduce you to Luc Batak, who did the work for us. And he's not here today, he's in France, but I have his picture, and I'll tell you a little bit about the work he did. Well, once we knew the carbon footprint of a piece of mail, it was too late. We had to do something. You know, about 5,000 pieces of mail, which if you know the mailing business, with 5,000 pieces of mail, you can almost hold 5,000 pieces of mail in your hand. You know, if you're good and strong, you can hold that in a couple of mail trays. That produces a ton of carbon dioxide, and not just from our plant, but what we're tracking here is from the tree all the way to the mailbox. So we've moved a heavy wood product from a tree to a plant, from the plant to our plant. We've converted it into mail by printing and folding it and inserting it, and then we've put it downstream through Canada Post. And that process, you know, more or less 5,000 pieces will contribute that great big balloon you see there. So once you start to understand, and keep in mind, you know, we produce tens of millions of pieces of direct mail, and the industry in Canada through Canada Post produces something close to 6 billion pieces of direct mail, and 10 times that in the US. You can start to see that you can imagine what these balloons start to look like. And then if you're in this sector, you're thinking, hey, how can I help reduce that and make a difference? You know, it's pretty simple to understand how greenhouse gas emissions participate, or how we participate in this whole greenhouse gas emissions cycle. Is that if you're using fossil fuels, you're creating greenhouse gas emissions currently. There isn't a really good way to remove them from burning fuels, and most of that's happening either to heat homes, etc., create some power, or to move things in trucks and cars. So if you're moving heavy things, if you want to summarize greenhouse gas emissions, move heavy things long distance, you're going to create greenhouse gas emissions, which is basically the definition of moving paper from a tree to our plant, and then downstream to mailboxes from St. John's to Masset on Haida Gwaii. Like, if you want to move mail, it's heavy, it goes a long way. I'll just show you this little chart because it gives you an idea of, you know, 45% of Canada's fossil fuel emissions come from burning for fuel and heat, etc. Of course, it's a pretty cold country, but 28% is transportation. That would be that blue section where we sit in this mail industry. We're moving heavy things a long distance to get mail to people's homes. And you know, Canada's not that great in a world scale. We emit quite a bit more than most other countries in the world, many multiples of some of the still industrialized countries, but we're trying to improve that. Luc Batak, I said I'd introduce him. He's this young man here. He did some research for us. He happened to be doing some research for municipalities on their greenhouse gas emissions. He took into consideration our facility, our commute to work, the paper, the postal delivery system. And you want to see his website report, it's on our website. Just go to primedata.ca and you can read his research. I encourage you to read it and have a look. What we were surprised to find is that paper is the largest contributor. Trucking is larger than we expected. Our facility, which we thought was one of the things we could control by say, changing our light bulbs, which we did, and doing some things to make sure that heat didn't escape from the building as quickly. We did some of those things. You know, we weren't going to make that much of a difference because we're a small sliver. And so we had to make a model for the postal system because that didn't exist. Canada Post and most postal systems at the time we started this report over a year ago had no greenhouse gas emissions per piece of mail or per package. So we did some work. I'm going to show you this chart very quickly. This is the greenhouse gas footprint in a couple of charts. You can see that the red section is the paper part. It's quite a large contributor. Of course, it comes back to my statement. If it's heavy and you got to move it a long distance, it's a contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. What we did find is that we can adjust the kinds of papers. We typically use a very common uncoated paper stock, and envelopes are made of that too. And those offset stocks have a small range of greenhouse gas emissions per ton of paper produced, but some of it depends on where it's made and different manufacturers' approach. And the manufacturers are getting better at presenting this information, making it more transparent so that we can choose better paper to suit our greenhouse gas emission targets. Considering it's 85% of the output, small changes in the greenhouse gas emissions of a particular brand. Let's say it's made in a jurisdiction where the mill is powered, by coal burning electricity plants. as opposed to a mill that might be powered by hydro or nuclear, or through burning and repurposing some of the waste from the mill. There can be quite a spread. So we focus on the paper, and we've made some choices and decisions about that. What happened is when we did the research, and we found out that a piece of mail was, about 21 grams of it. Our estimate, we had to tear apart the Canada Post website and annual report, and decide what it was going to be. We found just a few weeks ago that the Royal Mail in the UK, more than 6 months after we had released our report, came out with a way you can do a carbon calculation yourself. If you type carbon calculator Royal Mail and you're in the UK, if you're a listener here from the UK, you can go on and actually buy your own offset credits. Can't do that in Canada or the US yet, but I think it's coming soon. Probably going to start with parcels, but this will allow you to go on. And if you were mailing 100,000 pieces for a nonprofit in the UK, you could go in, it would estimate the carbon emissions, and then you could buy it actually with a Visa credit card. You could buy offset credits. And that's pretty easy. What we've done at Prime Data is we've made it just baked into our systems. So when you do direct mail in our plant, we've calculated all these things in advance, and baked into your price that you pay us is offset credits, and also our intelligence that we share with you about the paper stocks you're choosing, giving you some options, etc. And then we offset the greenhouse gas emissions. The first choice of our offsets is going to be the Coastal First Nations Great Bear Initiative. You can look this up yourself, but it's literally that easy. If I'm using the word easy too much here, it's because that's the name of the webinar. But if you want to immediately start offsetting your greenhouse gas emissions, any work you do with us, that especially the most common type, a couple of pieces of paper into an envelope, etc., those are not hard for us at all. And we'll just offset them. Gets a little more complicated if it's catalogs and things, coded papers and etc. So we have a little bit of a caveat, but most of the mail that we produce weighs less than 50 grams and is a couple of pieces into an envelope. But envelopes have been hard to get lately, so we invented an easy donor mailer. There's that word, easy again. The easy donor mailer is a way of not using an envelope. It reduces the weight a little bit, since, as I said, moving heavy things a long distance creates greenhouse gas emissions. If you can move slightly lighter things long distances, then it helps with your emissions. So not only can you use better papers, but you can use lighter mail pieces. So if your piece is lighter, you're going to emit fewer gas emissions. And so we've simplified some direct mail that our fundraiser clients often use, where they're wanting to put a business reply envelope. This piece wraps up and has a reply envelope glued inside of it, and a little clip seal on it. Here's a couple of samples. You can see the business reply envelope inside. The main goal behind designing this for our clients is to be able to say, hey, you've got some options that aren't only related to our offsets, but you could actually do a little bit of reduction. And we'll continue to try our reduction strategies to make it less impactful. You'll see here that you can, because of the way we print this, it isn't a static print, it's done on variable digital inkjet printing, that front and back of the piece can be variable. You can have like a fake post-it note there, and you can personalize it. So Susan Supporter thinks you're speaking to her very directly from a post-it note. And when you open it up inside, there'll be a BRE, and once again, fully variable on the inside and outside. So you've got the ability to speak in a very personalized way to your donors. If you're using this kind of thing for other business communications, likewise, personal inside and out, it's printed on the fly, not as a static shell. You'll notice Canada Post has personalized indices, kind of cute looking stamps. If you aren't using those already, you can find out more by just typing in customized postal indices at Canada Post. People can choose to use our carbon neutral direct mail logo. We just invented this for people who wanted to let people know that the piece of mail that they're sending them is carbon neutral, no obligation, but we do have several varieties of this in different flavors and sizes and colors to help indicate that you're taking some steps to make this direct mail carbon neutral. As I said, it's that easy. Everything produced at our plant is carbon neutral. You can take some steps like the easy donor mailer to reduce some of that. You can do your own mail using the common papers and things that we supply, and it will be offset and you'll have zero carbon. I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell you about some things that are coming up as well. What are we down to the last 5 minutes, Beth?
That's right, 5 minutes, yep.
And I just want to remind people that you could send in questions if you wanted. If you've got anything, you hit chat over to Beth. If you chat to everybody, she'll see them too. Feel free to ask questions, and contact us afterwards. You can reach me at my email sfalk@primedata.ca, or just come to the Prime Data website. There's a chat bot there, and you can find us there and say hello if you had further questions. But we've got some new research papers coming out. What we really wanted to focus on was whether or not using digital and paper communications versus one or the other had a greater impact on the environment. We all know it takes quite a few emails to get the same message as a paper mail, but what does that really look like? So we're going to be trying to do some research on the greenhouse gas emissions per dollar donated to a charity. What we're trying to see is if you can raise X amount of dollars with a ton of greenhouse gas emissions from paper, what is the corresponding greenhouse gas emissions by digital? There are some published stats on the number of grams of greenhouse gas emission emitted by an email, a blog post, an attachment, people who save them, etc. So we're going to use some of that research and try and put together a comprehensive idea, because some people, ourselves included, might jump to conclusions that just using digital only strategies might be the way to immediately impact greenhouse gas emissions. But it turns out that there are emissions not just associated with moving heavy things long ways, but with moving little things like electrons and storing them and sending digital messages. There's going to be a USPS version of this program coming up soon, so that we already deliver mail to the US every day of the week, just about, and we're going to try and do our best to make sure that we understand how the USPS is emitting greenhouse gas emissions as they deliver. Good news though, both the USPS and Canada Post have announced initiatives to have electric vehicles, and Canada Post moved up their target to become carbon zero by a decade or so the other day. It seems that their CEO, Doug Ettinger, is taking some great steps in that direction, and their Department of Sustainability is taking some leadership roles. So that's great to hear. Certainly doing it in Europe as well. So we're looking forward to that. And if you're curious about how this fits into your organization, you maybe have sustainability goals, some of them pointing towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. You might look particularly at goals number 9, 12, and 17, which in particular are related to the kinds of outcomes that we expect through carbon neutral direct mail programs like the one we're offering. That's what's coming up. Now we can have a moment to have some questions if there are any, Beth.
Yeah, Steve, I have a few questions that came in. The first one was, what UN sustainability goals does this mail program align with?
Well, I would suggest Googling United Nations sustainability goals, but the ones I think they're most related to are industry, innovation, and infrastructure, which is changing the way that your industry works and approaches environmental issues. And number 12, which would be responsible consumption and production, which is we're producing it and our clients are consuming it, shall we say, and so we want them to understand what the actual outcomes are, see if we can provide reduction and solutions, and then offsetting solutions for that. So like number 12, and then also number what's the last one here? 9, 12, and really 17, partnerships for the goals. We've formed strong partnerships with the stakeholders like Canada Post, like the paper companies who have joined the Sustainable Mail Group. And I feel if you're serious about taking on these initiatives, you have to spend a little bit of your company's time investigating other organizations who are contributing to this. What I find is, in particular in this sector, that they're being very generous with sharing their knowledge of it and how they can proceed, and so that others can benefit, and it's not seen as, shall we say, aggressively competitive or confidential, the steps people are taking to become carbon neutral. So you'll find a lot of sharing in the environment for that. So those are the 3 I'm thinking of. Beth, what else do we have?
Another question, do I have to use the Easy Donor mailer to get carbon zero direct mail?
Oh yeah, when we launched that a few months ago, people were thinking that was the only way they would get carbon neutral direct mail, and you know, they had their own ways they like to mail with envelopes, etc. And it's not the only way. It's just one way that allows you to take steps that are not only carbon neutral, but a little bit on the, so say it has the moniker of reduction hanging over it because you're using less weight, a simpler process, etc. That's my timer saying I'm getting close to the end of my time. Yeah, any more questions?
Yeah, the last one. Where is that study located that you mentioned?
Oh yeah, Luke Batak, who's did the study last year and is going to continue to do the future studies for it. You just go to primedata.ca, go to the carbon neutral page, pull down menu, studies there. You can download it as a PDF, no obligation. We don't ask for your name or anything, and then you can get a chance to see it there. If you feel like reaching out to me, getting further information about this, if you or your organization wants more information, feel free to, here's my contact information, book a meeting if you want to chat about it, or simply send me an email. Beth, is that everything, or were you covered?
Actually, there's one more. Have you found increased response levels from your clients?
Too soon to find that out. We started in April and it's just June, so I don't feel that our clients have been able to report back. We have found a number of people who want to, it's so new to be able to put a carbon neutral direct mail logo on their piece, but they're excited to be able to participate in some initiative and take some steps. And I believe that, you know, people, it has been proven. I've got a study I can share with somebody who posted that question. I saw that just a few days ago, and it was basically a study saying that, it was a marketing study that consumers prefer a brand that takes a stand on social justice, environmental issues, etc., to one that doesn't. And they did a bunch of research looking at two different brands that were presented very similar, say two running shoe brands, and one had this and two this. It turns out the consumers also want to participate in the life cycle of a brand that is taking these steps. So I would think the answer to that is probably going to pan out to be yes.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you to everyone who signed up. Thanks for sharing it. When you get the video, feel free to share it with others. We encourage you to, once again, become a member of the Sustainable Mail group if that staying involved and up to date on what's going on is your thing. Otherwise, thank you, Beth, for helping organize this, and everyone for taking sustainability in the direct mail sector so seriously to spend some time on this issue. Have a great day.
Thanks, Steve.
Ciao. Bye. Bye, Beth.